Welcome to IMUA's Quick Bites, a micro-learning series featuring subject matter experts in the inland marine insurance industry. I'm Eileen Monreale, Education Training Specialist with IMUA, and I'm happy to welcome Ron Castellanos and John Clark of Selective Insurance to talk about contractors' equipment valuation. Welcome, John and Ron. Take it away.
Okay, thank you, Eileen. So, John, we get a ton of questions almost every day about contractors' equipment and proper valuation. What's the current state of the market?
Well, Ron, the contractors equipment market, like so many others, has been deeply impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, the resulting supply chain disruptions that came out of that, the shortage in labor, and the rise in inflation rates. You mix that in with the demand for equipment being very high, but the supply is very limited. So thus, contractors really should make sure that they are protecting themselves in the event of a claim by ensuring their equipment at the most accurate valuation. I guess in layman terms, the best example I could use is go to your local car dealership. There's not much used car inventory out there. Same thing applies to contractors' equipment.
Okay, great point. So, John, I'm curious, clearly the contractor is responsible for reporting the proper values. What are the resources they can use to get these values?
Yeah, great question. A couple ways pop into my head here. They can pay for a formal appraisal by a third-party vendor. They can go online. There's a lot of resources out there where they just have to provide some basic information to get an updated valuation, basically input year, make, model, the number of hours vastly impacts the valuation. Or they can contact an auction house or an equipment dealer in their area and ask for pricing.
Okay, so clearly, very important subject matter. Now, we as underwriters, we see a schedule and we have questions about valuation. Can we use the same resources?
Absolutely. And I kind of tease the folks in my region, Google is our best friend.
Yeah, makes sense. Absolutely. So moving on a little bit to the policy form, how do insurance carriers insure equipment for valuation? Are there options?
Yes, there's a couple options that we see on a daily basis requested. Most insurance companies have the option of actual cash value, replacement cost with limitations on the number of years. I really haven't seen many carriers going past 10 years on replacement cost, or they can do agreed valuation. And I should point out that most carriers are going to have a co-insurance clause in their form.
Okay, can you share a little bit about the co-insurance clause for us?
Sure. Most coverage forms will have a section in there that states the co-insurance clause as it pertains to this line of business. It's going to be most carriers, I would say, at around 80% co-insurance or 90%. Basically, what it means is piece of equipment, you bought it for 100,000, you got to insure it for at least 80,000 or 90,000, depending on the clause.
Okay, and that clause, I think the topic of co-insurance clause might be a great concept for the IMUA on their next Quick Bites, actually, for this subject matter.
Absolutely.
So it is important. Now, just looking at a policy itself, one of the additional coverage elements that's usually added to almost every policy is leased and rented. How does the valuation impact that placement?
Well, this is where the insured and the agent kind of needs to be very careful, because in the language of a rental contract, it might state that they have to insure that piece of equipment that they don't own and that they're renting at 100% replacement costs. So regardless of the age and the hours, they might have to insure it for its full value by today's valuation. So they have to be very careful.
Okay, so really the insured, the agent, and ultimately the insurance carrier, everyone really needs to be confident about the limits for the leased and rented that they're placing on the policy, right?
That's correct. They're going to have to roll up their sleeves and do a little homework and come up with accurate valuation. And those examples I talked about earlier would help them arrive at those values.
Okay. It seems too that maybe the leased and rented could be another great topic for the Quick Bites by the IMUA. So, John, we hear you have a demonstration to show us a little bit more to illustrate the valuation issues in the marketplace.
Sure. I had a endorsement request sent in not too long ago by an underwriter because it exceeded their authority, and it got me thinking about this topic. So it's a 2023 Caterpillar. The current cost is about $1.2 million. So I did a little research online, took me maybe about 5 minutes, And I was kind of surprised at the different valuation numbers that were generated by my search. I found a 2019 Caterpillar, same model, about 12,000 hours on it, $500,000. 2014, so you would think it's going to be worth less, but the hours are only 4,700. That's worth about $800,000. And then the last example was 2015, but had a lot of hours on it, 32,000 hours, and it was only valued about $275,000. So really the hours on the piece of equipment will vastly impact the valuation.
Wow, yeah, clearly. That's amazing. Amazing. So John, with respect to all of this, what resources do carriers have going to adequately look at the values and maybe go look at the condition of the, say, the cat with the 32, almost 33,000 hours on it?
Sure. I would say most insurance carriers are going to have a safety management department. Great asset for us all to use. We'll send them out there to take a look at the account if needed, or we can just have a simple phone call with them and they can help us arrive at valuations or to double check if the valuation is accurate from the agency.
Okay, and then the actual condition too of the equipment, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks, John. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Clearly, this is a very fluid issue within the marketplace, and we're glad to have shared a few minutes of thoughts. But obviously, everybody involved needs to pay closer attention to the valuation. And thank you again for your time.
Thanks again.
Thank you. This was fantastic. One takeaway for me is that valuation is a complex and important topic. If IMUA members would like to learn more about contractors' equipment, visit the IMUA website for complimentary all-access education. Consider Understanding Contractors' Equipment, a recorded class with instructors Jason Baynard and Casey Davis. We also have a wealth of on-demand webinars on contractors' equipment, including logging equipment, Introduction to Exposures and Values with Jeff Vaughn. You can use the links in the description or this QR code that will take you there. Thanks again, Ron and John, for this has really advanced professional development in the inland marine insurance industry. Until next time, I'm Eileen Monreale with IMUA Quick Bites.